Guys, I wanted to do a little review about the OnePlus One. I just got this phone 2 weeks ago. I was one of the lucky people that finally got an invite for this phone when I entered, I think, one of their drawings. And I got this for $349. This is a 64 gig Sandstone Black Edition. And I mean, you can't really ask for a better device. It has 64 gigs of storage, as I already mentioned, for $349. The price point is just incredible for this type of phone. The build quality on this phone is really great. It feels really solid in your hand. It's actually pretty decent for one-handed use. I was kind of skeptical about having such a large phone and using it one hand, and I haven't had any problems with it, surprisingly. It's great for reading. To have such a nice 5.5-inch display. And for the price, I mean, comparing it to the Galaxy S5, the HTC One M8, which are its top competitors right now, you really can't go wrong with this phone. It's an unlocked phone that you can use with any carrier like AT&T or T-Mobile. And I mean, I really have no issues with it so far. Just wanted to go over how the phone itself feels in your hand. As you can see, I'm holding it with one hand, and even though it's a fairly large phone, it's pretty easy to have one-hand operation on the phone. I mean, I can easily, click on, go into programs if I needed to, open the browser. So it's pretty decent. Plus, the volume rocker and the power button are placed in such a way that it's very easy to control it, easily with your hand. You can easily turn the phone off or on if you need to. And the other thing is the Sandstone back. Obviously, it comes with a couple of different options. It has white. I think they even came out with a wood one. And you can swap the back cover. I'm not going to take it out right now because it's actually not that easy to do. But you can take the back cover off and swap it and put something else on. But there's still the battery that you will see when you take it off is non-removable. So I don't suggest you try removing. So to run through the physical aspects of this phone, this comes pre-installed with the Cyanogen Mod 11S version, which I have already updated to KitKat 444, as you can see right here. And then we have a quad-core processor, which is the Snapdragon 801, clocked at 2.5 gigahertz. And then you also have a nice 3 gigs of memory available here. Obviously, not the full memory is available because some of it is reserved. But that's just the basic stuff about the phone itself. Plus we have, as I already mentioned, a 13 megapixel camera which supports 4K recording. You have a 3100 mAh battery, which is a massive battery for this type of phone. I have to say the battery will easily last you all day long without any need for charging. And I have the phone currently running on the ART runtime, which can easily be changed in the developer options. To get to developer options, for anybody that doesn't know how to get to them, is that you have to go down to in the About Phone section. You have to tap on the build number a couple of times. I have already done this, that's why you get that notification, but you have to suppress it 5 times, and then you'll be able to see the developer options, which you can go into and tinker and change some other advanced settings on the phone. I don't recommend this for everybody, but once you go into developer options, you can select your runtime and change it to either Dalvik or ART. Default is Dalvik, which is the standard runtime currently, but with the newer version of Android coming out in the next few months, they're officially going to switch to ART. I've been running this phone on ART since I received it, and I haven't had any problems. It does give you a warning when you switch, and so you can run into trouble, especially with some apps, but the phone itself has been functioning fine. Battery life has been great, and I have not had any issues with it. Another thing I wanted to mention about the phone, obviously, is the display of the phone. As you can see, this has a 5.5-inch display. It is at 1920 by 1080 at 401 pixels per inch. So it's a very high-resolution display. I like it. I don't have any issues with it. Comparing it to the Galaxy S5 and then the HTC One M8, their screens are a little bit sharper in terms of the pixels per inch. The S5 comes in at about 435 pixels per inch versus the HTC One M8, which is at 441. But I personally don't think that this makes a huge difference to the naked eye. I mean, the resolution for the phone, the readability of text on the phone, it's perfectly, you know, everything is perfectly legible. There's really no issues on this phone in terms of reading something or reading a book. In terms of that, I don't really see any issues. Yeah, just to run down one of the obvious things about this one is the display. You get a 5.5-inch display, which is huge. It's the same as almost the same as a Note, Galaxy Note, and this is comes up to 401 pixels per inch with 1920 by 1080p. So it's a very high resolution display. And comparing it to the Galaxy S5, which is clocking at pixels per inch about 435, and the HTC One M8, which is 441, obviously their pixels per inch is a little bit higher, but to the naked eye, I don't think you really notice any difference. I just wanted to point out some issues that I've had with this phone, even though there are not a lot. One of the obvious things that I noticed right out of the box was the notification sound. The speakers on this phone, as I mentioned, are dual speakers at the bottom, so they are very powerful. And the default way of changing the sound, which is, you know, just pressing the volume rocker, is fine, but the issue I noticed is that it doesn't change the notification sound at the same level that it changes the ringer. And to compensate for that is that you actually have to go into your sound settings and go into volumes and then actually unlink the ringtone and notification volumes, which is the option right here, which I have unlinked at the moment. It's because I realized when I unlinked it that the notification sound stays one notch higher than the ringer volume. So if our ringer volume is here, the notification sound might be here. This was kind of annoying for me, especially being at work, would disturb other people. And you know, I had to adjust that because otherwise it was just, even at the first notch right here, it was just too loud. So that's one of the issues I noticed. And aside from that, it does have a large battery, so it does take a little bit longer to charge than, you know, maybe a regular like Nexus 5, which I had previously. And it's not really a deal breaker, obviously. It's just something to keep in mind. Also, the phone does not have any internal external storage cards, so you can't expand its memory. You just have to buy it, and it comes with 64 gig or 16 gig. I obviously have a 64 gig here, and I recommend everyone to go for the 64 gig, especially with the $50 price difference. It's a no-brainer. One other issue that I would mention for this phone would be the fact that the camera does not support any image stabilization. Optical image stabilization. So the only thing it does have is an option for steady photo. So if you're someone that's moving around a lot, walking around, and taking pictures at the same time, you may have some issues with blurry photos coming out. So versus like a Nexus 5, which has optical image stabilization, so it's not something you would want to worry about with that phone. But this particular phone does not have optical image stabilization. Obviously, they have a steady photo option, which compensates programmatically for that issue. I personally haven't tried it yet, so I can't comment on how good or bad it is, but just another thing to keep in mind. But aside from that, the camera itself is a great camera. With kind of CyanogenMod 11s pre-installed. Obviously, what that means is that it has a lot of customization options. Just from the notification settings, you can see, like, this is the settings section. If you scroll from the right side, you get the settings, and this is all customizable. I have it set to default. This is the way it looks by default. As I mean, the only extra thing you will really get is you have the GPS, and you have a torch option that you can turn on and off. And the notifications are a little bit different. You have all these options up top, which you can also customize. You can take some of the icons out. You can insert more if you want to. And aside from that, when you go into your settings, you have a couple of extra personalization options. You have a notification drawer, so you can customize some of the options specific to the notification screen. You can customize some options to the lock screen, which obviously are also available in the stock version of Android. And then you also have this thing called gesture support, which I'm not currently using. I'm not a big fan of gestures, but this is something that's available too. I already mentioned that this phone comes with CyanogenMod as the ROM that's pre-installed. And this phone is specifically made for that. The camera app is already an example of that. It has a lot of customization options available. It's really easy to switch between them, as you can see here. it's a massive amount of options. A really nice thing is the settings that you can customize for the camera itself. You can control the shutter speed, you can modify the ISO. I mean, these are some really cool features that the stock Android app from Google missed. And aside from that, there's also rumors that they may even introduce a RAW option for taking pictures with this phone, which will be even more awesome, especially for photographers. So the camera on this phone, even though it doesn't have optical image stabilization, it does have a lot of other things that pretty much... I also wanted to talk about some other personalization options that this phone has. And as you can see, if I slide down from the right side, I get the settings option or menu in the notification tray. And this has all these tiles that are all customizable. You can add more tiles, you can remove tiles. And if I go from the left side, then you get the regular notifications, and that has another CyanogenMod feature, which is you have quick notifications right up top, which are also customizable. And if you go into settings, then we get all these personalization options, some of the ones that are already part of it. And then you also have gesture support. Now the phone itself has gesture support. I personally don't use it, but you know, if you're into gestures and you like the idea of using gestures, then go ahead and use it as much as you want, but I'm not into it. Another thing I wanted to mention is these on-screen buttons, which is another option that you do not get on regular Android devices, is that you can actually turn it off. So it will actually switch over to these capacitive buttons at the bottom. This is what it comes with default. I like the on-screen buttons, so I went in and I enabled this option. And then you have a couple of customization options relating to these buttons that you can also set up. So as I said, I mean, people who are already familiar with CyanogenMod know that customizable it is. And it's a really great option to have right out of the box. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to comment or ask me any questions if you have, and like and subscribe.